Welcome back to the Weekly Juice podcast. My name is Ryan Bevilacqua. As always, I'm joined alongside my co-host here, Corey Jacobson. This is episode 10. Today, we're going to talk about following your dream, living life without a 9-to-5, and a peek behind the curtain for a few real-life influencers.
That's like good, dude. You just make that up?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what?
Curtain.
They just removed the
I
curtain.
thought it was fairy dust.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. One.
Wait,
No,
this
this
way.
way.
Oh, well, I'm opposite.
Ready?
3, curtain.
Oh.
Oh my, who are they?
Look at those
Okay.
t-shirts. Anyway,
Those are fire.
this is a cool episode. We're having our first females on the show, which I think is really important. And it just so happens that one of them is my sister and her very good friend who you guys met pretty recently, actually, but have become really good friends, which is cool. I'm going to introduce them in a minute, but we're excited about this show specifically because we like to talk about finances, evaluating your time, spending time doing things that make you happy. We have a lot of real estate podcasts, specifically in the last couple episodes, and we will continue. But this one's more about entrepreneurship in general and just what it takes to follow your dream, take the leap of faith, leave a 9-to-5, or not even start one, not even start life out of college with one. And these two ladies are like living proof that you can do it, just depending upon how you go about it. So I want to introduce my sister. I don't know if you're going to go by Jules or Julia. Everyone knows you by Jules. It's
Whatever you want.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Julia Jacobson and Vivian Audi. Thanks for coming on.
Hi.
Of course.
Thanks
We're
for
happy to
having
be
us.
here.
Yeah, listen to them. So
Wow.
not only are they influencers, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves in a second about what exactly how they would describe their lives and what they do, but they also have a podcast called Love That For You, where they talk about the real shit, not just what's the slogan?
I don't know if it's really our slogan.
Yeah.
We just talk about
Things.
the everyday things, kind of like a little personal journal.
Cool. Why don't you guys give us a little bit of background on yourselves, how you guys met? I see you as a team, but you're actually separate humans. So, a little bit on each of your stories and how you got started being influencers, because realistically, like a lot of people call themselves influencers, but these girls get paid to do it.
I think you 100% break it down. What is an influencer?
Yeah.
People that don't know. So
Yeah.
take it away, ladies.
Well, I think, to be honest, I'm not even like gung-ho on the term influencer because I don't even know what that means. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at myself as like a girl, a woman who decided to do something for myself. And so when someone says, especially like lately, I've been hearing like, thank you for doing this as an influencer. And I'm like, no, I'm doing this because I'm a human, and like, I don't know. I'm not 100% crazy about the term. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's just my
Vivian, that's what makes you
personal opinion.
successful at what you do, is because you're doing something that kind of like lights a fire and it's circulating your passion. So that's the reason that you're good at it. So maybe I'm glad that it's cool that you're not calling yourself an influencer, but you are. So
What you do has influence on
I
others.
see that's the title that's like been given, right? But
Well, we always go back and forth. A lot of people in our industry that do the same thing, we kind of are like, what do we call ourselves?
Right.
And that's always just a back and forth, like not conflict, but just like a conversation of like, what are we actually? But at the end of the day,
digital content creators.
yeah, there's content creation. It's a bunch of different things.
Okay.
but-
So a little bit of background on what you guys,
How you met?
how you met, and how would you describe what you do?
Well, it's funny that you say, like, in the beginning, you were saying like, oh, you're actually two different people, because we met through Instagram, but we met at like a event, I think, for some brand, and I think I actually just DM'd her. Oh, let me see that again. I think I actually DM'd Viv, and that's how I've met we both have met a lot of the other influencers and that have become our friends just through reaching out. So we met through there and then actually met in person at an event, and then started, like, I think just talking through there, and eventually started to shoot photos together in the city and kind of just became friends that way. But like obviously the podcast came later. So that's how we met. What do you want background about?
Well, I mean, I guess I want to know, how do you describe what you do? Like, these ladies have, I guess Vivian's built a little bit of a bigger following, but they both have, for lack of better, for numbers here, they have hundreds of thousands of people that follow them. And they essentially get paid to promote brands. I mean, what is that? Just walk me through that process of how you generate income and what you do, like, on a daily basis.
Well, I think like in the beginning, both of us started out doing this, not thinking about the money up front, and it was a hobby. And that was like one of the most important things I think that helped both of us grow, because in the beginning, it was just about like the love of taking photos, fashion, beauty, all of that stuff, and really being like passionate about that. And then the numbers and the people kind of came after. And then once we realized, like, then we would start getting even emails from brands like 2 years later. I got my first email and it was like, we'd love you to promote our products, basically saying that we can gift you something and you can post for us. And to me, that was like amazing. It still is, like, we still do that all the time.
Yeah.
So the process just kind of started really slowly, and us realizing that we're going to show brands that we want to work with them eventually on a paid basis. But in the beginning, we're going to accept gifts and we're going to post and show like our genuine love for brands, by just posting for them, trying to get like reposted by other brands on social media so that it would help us grow. So it's kind of just like a give and take. But also, I don't think there was like, we still struggle with like, how does it work? How do we grow? Because it's always like back and forth.
Yeah, I think that, sorry.
No, good. I just wanted to know, how did you even know where to start?
Well, I think that's what I was going to touch upon. So my journey, I was actually in nursing school when I started my blog. I started my blog like a couple weeks before my nursing program started. And so I did my blog kind of like as mental health therapy, like hobby, just on the side, something.
How old
like
are you at this time, by the way? I'm just
I
curious.
was 23,
Okay, cool.
I think, or 22. No, 23, maybe even 24. How old am I?
It's really important to get it exactly right.
7, yeah.
She was a few years younger.
So I think I was 24. And I started my blog, and I did that on the side. And so for me personally, it was like 100% pure just hobby and like an outlet. And by the time I graduated my program, I had seen my Instagram account rise. But I had always say, and I will always tell anyone, if you're looking to start, look at your own closet, look at your own hobbies, look at your own passions and creative outlets, and try to make that like your focal point. And excuse me, what is happening to us? Especially for those who want to create kind of like an Instagram kind of more molded towards fashion and lifestyle. Like, you don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be making a ton of money. Go in your closet, and whatever's in your closet, I'm sure 90% of them are brands that you like and would love to work with in the future. So start wearing them, start taking photos in them, and post them, tag your brands that you love. And little by little, those gifted partnerships with PacSun, with Urban Outfitters, with Dolce Vita, with Steve Madden, with Adidas, and all these different brands that you naturally wear will come. But you have to be extremely, extremely patient, and you do have to give and take. So I think it's all about patience and perseverance, and trying to figure out, just coaching yourself to really understand that you have to put in a lot of time, and you have to have a shit ton of patience to see any amount of success.
Yeah.
So I picture myself, say, I want Nike to pay me essentially to market for them and advertise. Essentially what you're saying is find things in your closet and tastefully post online. But I also think that a big sector of it is the relationships that you guys culminate and kind of foster through your pages. And I think, does that help grow the following, or how, I guess my real question is, how do you grow your following from, let's say, 0 to hundreds of thousands?
Well, so like how I started really was, I was at home and like just wanted to start, and I didn't realize that, like, I thought I had to wait until I was like in New York, or wait until a certain point to start. And then I just started, and then eventually I think the next year I ended up moving to New York, and that's when I met like every single person that I know now, either in the industry or brands, or just like, it just created like this huge network, which I think then you meet other people doing the same thing in the same industry, and that also like puts you on their platforms, and like you guys do things together, and like you're meeting people at events, and then you're also meeting brands. So it kind of gives you like room for growth there, and just like, I guess just like putting yourself in, I don't even know how to say
So
it.
I think
like,
what you're trying to say is that one aspect of it is trying to network and like be in other people's social media platforms to be seen and
like
to
submerge yourself just like within what you want to do.
have a community. But I also think on the other side, like you start your own, let's say you don't have those opportunities and you're in Bumble F nowhere, Nebraska, which I'm sure is beautiful, but I'm just saying you are the only person in that community that wants to be a blogger, let's say. Like, I think what you need to do, besides creating the actual content that you see in a year or whenever, like the gain and the success, right? Because you have to have a vision for it.
Yeah.
But since you're literally starting at the very beginning, you have to share, you have to, one, be consistent, and two, your audience, no matter if it's one person, 50,000, 500,000, 5 million, you have to look at each number as the million that you envision. Like, that's how I always have come to my platform. So when I started and I had 1,000 people following me, I thought, okay, well, this is my 1 million, and I am going to get on my stories, and I am going to talk, and I am going to share
like
my life and so nothing that I'm doing right now is really different than when I started, because I looked at my audience as if I was already in the point of success of having a million. And I'm not at a million, but I will be. You know what I mean?
We always talk about consistency. That's like the main
consistency. And I'm just thinking about engagement, and how do you engage? And I'm not calling them fans, but followers, like people that want to know what you guys are doing on a daily basis and are so inspired in certain ways, right? How do you engage? Do you plan things out, or is it off the cuff? Can you walk us through that?
I think it differs for everyone. I think that there are people out there that plan out, today I'm going to talk about X, Y, and Z, and tomorrow I'm going to talk about A, B, C. And I personally don't. I mean, in terms of like content, if I have a contract and I know that I have to put this specific story on Monday, then yeah, like that I know. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm posting whatever I feel is true to myself, is going to be helpful and inspiring, or maybe a little bit of a relief or anything like that. So I think it depends on who you talk to, and I think everyone will have a different answer to that question.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I think that relating this back to what we talk about a lot in this show, and Jules, when you said you offered up your services for free at first, and that like really struck a chord with me, because I'm not an influencer in the coaching sphere, but I'm in a good place from the coaching position that I want to be, and I still have goals to go forward. But the first thing I did was I'll be a volunteer. Like, I'll do this for free, because you knew you loved it. And like the fact that you guys dove in, say, I'll work for free, is, I think it allows you to pursue your passions, because you know that you would wake up and do what you do for free, right?
Yeah, and I think that is a huge part of it. And the other part of it is that like, it was such a passion. I don't even think I knew we could get paid for it.
No, not at all. I remember the first time that a brand asked me what my rates are, I literally Googled what are rates. Yeah, I was like, what do you mean, what are rates?
Yeah.
Like,
to paint people a picture of how these young women entrepreneurs get paid, right? So, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Essentially, they're saying they offered up their services to wear brands. We mentioned the Adidas, Urban Outfitters, brands like that, wear their clothing and post either wearing it, or I guess in some other way of
hashtagging it,
hashtag and marketing their clothing. And then they come to you once you build a following of a certain amount of people, and then they pay you to hit your sphere of people, right? Is that
Sphere of
I think
influence,
the
right?
other
Yeah.
thing is like, it's also when you feel like the brands aren't necessarily going to reach out to you, but there's a
Right.
certain point where we realize that we are able to reach out to them and not necessarily ask for money, but
Right.
up front say, hey, we'd love to work with you. And like they're gonna come back and say, great, we would love to send you this item, which still happens all the time. And you know, can
Yeah,
you
I don't
post?
really see any of those items you get, so I appreciate you sending me anything ever. So
Well, I get mostly female things. So
Oh,
do you
right.
want to buy some
Adidas, I don't know.
yeah, Adidas, they make male stuff, just so you know. But
Adidas. I have not worked with Adidas,
okay,
Oh.
well, you know.
but yeah.
So
So-
can you take us through an example of maybe a sample deal, or a company that reached out to you, and you don't have to mention name or exact dollar amount, but it's intriguing. You mentioned you were so excited on your first deal that came through on an email. Can you just walk through the process of like how you went back and engaged with them, and then the offer and negotiation? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so usually what happens, the brand reaches out to you and they say there's either two ways. It's either a brand reaches out to you and their email says, you know, we love everything that you post about. We think that you would be a great fit to represent our product or our clothing or whatever. And then it's either one, please send us, or this is what we're looking for. We're looking for an Instagram feed, post, and stories, and please send us your rates and your analytics. Or it's, we're looking for this and that at this moment. We're only doing gifting.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
you have a choice. No matter what size audience, you're always going to get either or email. So you have
their initial action is we're going to gift you, and they're either expecting you to come back with our rates.
Well, I mean, I've gotten some emails that automatically ask for your rates, but there are also emails that won't ask for your rates. They'll try to give you something gifted. So then you have the option to respond. The one that is asking for your rates, okay, you give them your rates. The one who's just asking if the campaign is gifted, you can either accept that if you want, or you can negotiate and say, at this time, I'm not doing any unpaid collaborations. If you want to negotiate, and you can ask, you know, let me know if you're willing to talk about rates or discuss rates, however you want to word it. But yeah, that's like your option. But if you do then at the end start talking about rates, basically the way that it works in social media is that for every 10,000 followers, it's $100 per post. So at 100,000, it would be like $1,000
Per post.
per post.
That's
It's
like a very, very
yeah.
average.
Sure. No, but that makes sense. And I think that some people don't understand, like, oh, these girls are sustaining their lives or making a lot of money, right? Doing this as their full-time job. And maybe that's offensive to you that people don't realize that happens, but like this is what you're full-time, this is what you do full-time. And I think that I kind of want to talk about like how you might have gone through times in your life where you've had to humble yourself in a way to say, in order for me to get to where I want to be, where I can sustain my life full time, I probably had to make sacrifices up front where as an influencer, it may look like you're living this like lavish lifestyle where you're traveling to Greece and you're in Rome and you're doing all these things. And you may be doing that when you can. But for me on this podcast, on the Weekly Juice, we talk about like financial independence and taking time to build your savings and those types of things. So I know Jules, like you lived at home for 3 years after college, right? Or I don't know how long, maybe it was 3 years. Yeah. And can you guys talk about, Vivian, I don't know your story with that. I don't know, but can you talk about what you've had to do up front in the beginning to say, I'm going to make this full time and I'm not going to go work a 9 to 5 because I don't have to.
It's funny that you say that. So I graduated my nursing program, and when I graduated, I had gone from the 2,000 to 13,000 in 1 year. When I graduated, I was at 13,000, and I knew that deep down, my passion was to be a full-time blogger. But I knew it was kind of like always being like just pushed down, because the safe thing and the thing that I also loved was to be a nurse. And so I became a nurse. I graduated and I needed to take my NCLEX, which is the nursing boards. And everyone in my program was taking them a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks out of our program. And we graduated in May. And people were even getting jobs. And here I am at 13,000 and I'm like, oh my God. I grew 10,000 in a year doing this on the side as a hobby. And I can either take my NCLEX, start looking for jobs, or use all my savings and travel for 6 weeks. And so I literally spent $10,000 and I traveled for 6 weeks and I went to France, south of France.
Content did you get from that?
I was about to say that's ballsy. Love it though.
That was my investment into myself. And it's funny, like I've never even realized that, but I literally spent my entire savings. And when I came back home, I was at 20,000
followers.
So
right?
20,000
After
followers.
6 weeks, sorry.
Well, so it beginning to end of the summer, but the majority came from that amount of travel time. And so for me, I was like, and then what happened was that I came back and I was at 20,000 and I started getting emails from brands asking for rates. And that's when it all started. So I hadn't even applied for a nursing job.
Question.
That's
Who
crazy.
takes your pictures? If you're the one in the picture, do you have like a timer or something like this? You guys have phenomenal photos.
Ask Ethan. Ethan would take my pictures, our little brother, my mom, Pat, anyone you can find, self-timers.
My grandma was like my number one photographer for the longest time.
How much were you paying her?
Did you smuggle her to Greece with you?
My brother, my mom, and then when I was traveling, I met up with several friends throughout the trip. And so I just had asked them, but I definitely had some pushback on friends and some friends that were just like so fed up with me because I was and still am very, very particular and I need to find the lighting and I want this in the background.
But
that
makes
that's totally me.
On a total non-influencer level.
Not an influencer yet. I don't like to use the term influencer though. However, our posts, our captions, everything has to be perfect. Not perfect, but I know I piss these guys off a lot.
That's how I am.
Well, we're both like that, and I think like in terms of what we both have realized over from starting to now, if we go back and we look at our photos, for me it's like, oh my God, this is terrible because I didn't care about the lighting, I didn't care about most things. All I cared about was pushing so much content out, and now it's really about like good quality content really matters.
So you think that changes over time?
Just started.
Right.
Like, I think that was back thing
a while ago.
Is that like people are just like, oh, I'll start when I get this camera. Oh, I'll start when it's summer because I'll be warm and tan. Oh, I'll start when I have X amount of followers. Like, no, the thing is to just start.
Yeah, and it'll come.
Yeah,
you'll learn.
It's incredible you said that because we started this podcast. Like I talked to Rye like on a Sunday. And I was like, I got shit to talk about. And he's like, you really want to do this? And he's like, I'm all in. And then we started like in a week and we're just putting stuff out. And it's such a work in progress. But your episode is actually going to be filmed with Jake's camera on better lighting. And like, as we move along, we build it up to a way that it's like, we're going to look back and say our first episodes were absolute shit. But it's like, we don't care because the content is getting out there and it's like a kind of just a work in progress, right?
So is your advice for someone starting out fresh that wants to do this, we start with 0 followers, wants to make it kind of what you guys are doing, content, just push it out, and then as you build followers, then make it high quality? Or is there a blend?
No, I think it's doing the best that you can in the situation that you are in with the equipment and the technology that you have. Like, I don't think listen, if you can and doing the research, like if you're looking up YouTube videos on how to find good lighting, then go look up that YouTube video and go, take notes. Like I have pages of notes and that I took and I still take on things, especially like entering new platforms. YouTube, I spend hours looking up how to gain an audience, how to create YouTube, how to edit better. Like it's all the amount of work that you want to put into it. And I think that you just have to start with what you have.
So you mentioned a couple of resources there, and I think we talked camera, maybe an editing kind of software. What do you use on a daily basis to kind of run your own business? essentially what you're both doing.
I think it depends on different platforms. For Instagram, it's just my iPhone.
Everyone like uses, I mean, it's all different, but when I first started, it was the phone. And then I thought I needed like professional photos. So I had a photographer for a while. And then I realized that the iPhone photos actually were fine and they were liked better by the audience, because the audience, like for us as an influencer, we're the most like relatable. We're supposed to be so relatable to the audience. And we're not, like, it's almost like the celebrity is like not a relatable person, and like our voice is like, we are going to share what we like with you guys and try to be as relatable as possible. So by using the iPhone, that means you guys can do this too.
Got it.
So it's like iPhone is
So
like all in terms of video different.
It's something that we're not going to sit here and say that anyone can do what you're doing, because that would be foolish. But we're saying that
I think, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I think anyone can do what we're doing if you have the passion behind it. So
just like any other job,
like any other job. I mean, if you're, I don't know, I struggle with it because sometimes there are people that say, how do I become an influencer? Or how do I make money? Well, this didn't just happen overnight. And like, if it does happen overnight, you are the like 0.0001%, you know, like you can't look at Charlie D'Amelio on TikTok with now 20 million on Instagram and 60 million on TikTok. Like that was an overnight sensation. I don't know, it just clicked, it hit. And even that was not overnight, but it was like a couple days to a month.
We always talk about just like, when we started, we were like, what do you do? And then like all the shit that we've learned till this point and like still learning, I'm just like mind blown at the fact that I kept going. Cause it's like, I can't even look back. I mean, it's great to look back, but it's like, how did I do that?
But that's
a great segue, because
that drives you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Say that again.
I said, it's a passion that drives you. Like you don't even realize that you've been doing this for amount of years, and never once do I think of what I'm doing as like work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great segue, because I want to talk about Fortitude and like the ability for you as women entrepreneurs to take the dive and go for it. And I'm just curious if you have anything to say about being a woman entrepreneur. Not that there's anything different than being a man. Well, there is things that are different than being a man. I was confused on how to phrase this. Like, is it sexist to say like even ask the question about being a woman entrepreneur? But I guess my question is, you had the fortitude to say, I'm going to throw security and safety and the job that pays me $40,000, $50,000 a year off the bat, or $60,000 a year, or maybe more if you're a nurse. I'm going to throw that out the window and I'm going to dive in. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on Fortitude and just going for it. Like, what does that mean to you?
I think that it's hard to speak for anyone else except myself, because I was really, really lucky, and I am incredibly blessed and grateful that I had the support of my parents paying for my education, and I never once take that for granted, and I never once try to cover that up or try to say, no, like I was struggling. Like, no, like I am very blessed to have the fact that my parents had my back.
Yep.
So I think that did give me a little bit of grace to actually go through this. And I remember my dad asking me, once I passed my NCLEX at the end of the summer, when I finally took my boards, he asked me, okay, great. Like, are you applying for nursing jobs? Then I was like, yeah. Meanwhile, I wasn't. Like, I was taking on collaborations, trying to see if I could make enough money to support myself. So I think it's different for everyone. And I would say just go, but I also wouldn't recommend or advise totally 100% ditching your 9 to 5 with
we know
no
plenty
comfort.
Of people that have either have or had a 9 to 5 while they were doing it, and either quit or.
Well, it's similar to what Ryan and I are talking about all the time on the podcast, is that I think there's very, very different avenues to get to your passion. And it's not always smartest for people to say, you know what, I'm going to just dive in and not have a plan and go for it. Even though everyone says, follow your dream, follow your dream, follow your dream. Yeah. Part of it's bullshit, because and personally in my life, I have a 9 to 5. It's very stable. It provides me a good income, and it's able to allow me to use side hustles like coaching and side hustles like investing in real estate to build that up to an area where I feel comfortable if I do want to leave my 9 to 5, right? So what I even do, but like I think that there's a lot of value in building a 9-to-5, building to your side hustles to a certain point, and then you may be able to leave. You guys just happen to say, well, holy shit, this is working. It's working. It's working. And now you're at a place where you can sustain a lifestyle and make good money, you know?
Yeah, I have two that piggyback off this. We talked a lot about passion, right? That you talked about that. So when you say passion, what, if you can both answer this, what is the driving why factor of why you do what you do? And off that, what's the end goal with what you're doing and your businesses?
End goal. Why am I doing what I'm doing? I think in the beginning, it started out obviously as a passion, and it was just about fashion, and that was what I really wanted to share with everyone else and share my like personal style and like hope that, you know, people would follow along and like, you know, like it and like try and recreate it. And then just recently, the last year, it kind of turned into like more than just fashion. It became like lifestyle, and it became like a community of like talking to people that follow me and really dealing with like, I don't know, like I think our podcast has a lot to do with this because now we get to like converse with our audience about other either issues or problems. So it turned into like, I feel like we're helping our little community in other ways that I never thought is possible. So I think that's more of like also what the end goal is too, to like look back and be able to say that, you know, we help people in some type of way, whether that's like, you know, I could never find like the perfect pair of jeans because of my body type or something like that. Or on our podcast, like we had a whole relationship advice episode was it last week, and we've had like so many DMs being like, oh my gosh, like you literally changed my life, or like things like that. So it's just turned into like just so much more than I ever thought it would be.
Really cool. I think for me, it's a bit of the opposite. So I started my blog after like an awful breakup, and so for me it was mental health, and my goal was to connect with other women specifically, and I knew that my audience would be predominantly women just because of the nature of what I was sharing. But yeah, to connect with them and to kind of just help them however I could. And I think, I mean, I always say that like if I wasn't helping someone, I would never feel fulfilled. And so that's why I love medicine, because for me, like I need my life to have that fulfillment feeling. And so I did want to become a nurse, and I love nurses, and I still keep my license because, I mean, God knows what can happen, and you know that's always there. But yeah, I like that was my goal, and I started really connecting with my audience, and I found that fulfillment. And so I just like I knew that even though it's hard because sometimes people don't give influencers the recognition or like the substance behind what they're doing, you know what I mean? They think it's very, very superficial. Sure. And I can't even get annoyed because I see that, and I even have those judgments about some people that I see, and I'm like, oh, yeah, like I just hate that. To me it seems superficial, but for me in my heart it was about like the fulfillment and helping and relating to others and helping others through situations. And then yeah, I've always loved fashion, so that was always there. But yeah, it was that was my focal point, and then things just developed. So
that's why you're good at what you do, because it develops off that passion. I think we can transition a little bit. I mean, it's crazy good advice for people that want to get started, and it's like one of the things that we talk about a lot is that time is your most valuable asset, because you can amass all this money and then you get to a certain point, you're like, what's it all for? Like, why am I even doing this shit? So we know that you were not money driven. That's not the question. But being that time is your most valuable asset, I'm wondering what you do to protect your time, because what you guys do is essentially a 24/7 thing. And how do you shut off, or do you shut off? And to go off that, what do you want to spend your time doing? I see you guys laughing because I know this is like a topic of conversation, that it's like you can turn it off, right? So elaborate if you
can. I want to say first thing that I don't think we're not money driven, or personally. That is like,
yeah.
you know,
It just might not be the
not-
number one thing. Is
not.
what
I think that like that started later. It wasn't the initial thought, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a job for us. What's the other question? Turning off? How do we?
Well, just like I protect my time to allow myself to do things in my life that make me really happy. And that's why I'm working a 9-to-5, building side hustles. So eventually I can be financially free and do the things that make me happy without question every single day.
Which is what?
Which is coaching. Oops.
Also,
I have to do it.
What else?
And investing in real estate. And chilling with Rye.
Chilling with your friends, family, traveling.
Yeah, exactly. Friends, family, traveling, spending the time doing stuff that I want to do. We're not put here to work all the time. If you don't do certain things, you might be working till you're 75. So, or longer. I guess. Yeah. Did I give you off of there?
Yeah, I really struggle with this because it is like constantly day in, day out at the forefront of my mind of balance, of figuring out how to even balance my life. And I really struggle with it personally because what I do is my passion and it is my life and it is my joy. And taking photos, communicating, like posting, like everything that I do because I love it. And so, and it's hard. Like I also love hanging out with my friends and I also love, traveling, but like those things are also part of my job. And so it's so hard to really find that dividing line that says, okay, this is when you stop and this is when you just enjoy the things that you love documenting, but enjoy them for your eyes and your heart and your ears only.
I think that's important because people say if you have passion or if you find your passion and you basically your income is your passion, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
You just talked about that perfectly. Like you don't view it as a job,
but
you're getting paid.
Do you find yourself not allowing yourself to be in the moment because you're constantly recording things that are going on?
Totally. I can't deny that I've never felt that or thought that or been ashamed or upset or disappointed with myself because I don't know how to disconnect or I have the internal fight with myself to disconnect. It's like, no, but like, the audience is going to love to see this and like it might inspire them or it might like motivate them. But then for me, I'm also like, okay, but just freaking relax. It's 5 hours of your time and like they don't need to see everything. And I think for me, one thing that has been so amazing is that I have a sister and I have a brother, but my sister has a baby and she does not want him on any type of social media. And so when I'm with him, I am just,
you have no other choice.
I have no other choice. And it's at first I was fighting and I'm never going to fight with my sister because that is her child, even though I think that he's also my child. But that's her decision and I'll never fight with her about it. So even though I like wanted to fight her about it and I was angry and kind of like just frustrated, it's now become like one of my favorite things that like those moments are just between him and I.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So we talked a lot about freeing up your time and kind of creating your own schedule, right? You don't have a specific 9-to-5. How do you set your schedules up? Like you wake up every day, how do you know what you're going to do, what you're going to attack? And then when your phone's blowing up all day and you keep getting these notifications that people are talking to, how do you pick who to answer? And do you have to respond to everybody?
Julia literally never answers me. So it's like, I'm just like,
Not true.
I actually know that if I call Julia, like if I was dying in a Sahara Desert with service, she would pick up because I know she has her phone. I was actually kidding. She definitely has it. So it's like, I know.
You're on watch.
This is where we differ.
Yes.
I am really, no, you're very organized. I'm not going to say you're not organized. I am like on top of my shit. Like I have to write down what I'm going to get done in a day. We both do this like hour by hour, basically.
But the difference,
I literally do it by the hour. And when I'm done something, even if I'm not finished, I'm moving on to the next thing. And you spend like 10 hours on one thing.
Perfectionist, meaning?
That is so me.
it takes her If she can do 10 things in 1 hour, and I do the one thing in 10 hours.
Yeah, but it's the difference is that it's not that I'm not.
It's so
They're
funny.
like, dude, we do this thing.
Yeah, I'm
Leave me
you,
alone,
Jules.
dude.
I'm you, because I'm knocking shit off my checklist.
But it's like, even if I don't finish, I'm going to come back to that. But I know that if I spend my entire time on that one thing, I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah.
And then I'll go crazy on you because I'm like,
Yeah.
Viv, what the fuck are you doing? And that's how it works.
Like, we need to do this. That's good.
Why is he not answering? How many likes did you like today?
It's bad.
That's good though. It's the what are the yin and the yang?
No, but that's why, like, also for our podcast and now like business, like we do work really well together in that sense most of the time, because it's like we have totally different perspectives, different, like, which you guys obviously do too. Like, it's just two sides to things. But I think it like works for us in that way.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Wait, so how, back to that, how do you decide who to answer and who to engage with on your platforms?
Oh, when people
DMs?
Yeah, like
whether it's
our
a DM or
comments.
comments, like, do you have something like a program that assists with that, or is it you naturally every time? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, for both of us, we try, I mean, just luckily both do this. We try to answer every single comment that we get, which usually, like, when Viv is like, all right, I'm going to post, it's usually post at night. It's like she posts at 10 o'clock and she's not really done till 11, because that's how long it takes to answer all of those comments up front.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, for me, for DMs, it's just a never ending. I do my best to get to every single one. Sometimes I'll sit down and just go through and answer as much as I can, and then do more later, or, you know, they just
Or I'll see, like, if I post something and I'll see a mass influx of DMs that are saying, where's this? Right. And they're all saying, where's this top from? Where's this top
the
from?
same thing.
Where's this top from? I'll just do a mass slide on my Instagram stories with a swipe up. And sometimes then when that person DMs me about something else and I'll answer that, I'll just like apologize for missing the previous messages, but like hopefully knowing that I have answered the question in a different way, even though it wasn't individual.
So if you're ever talking shit to them,
It's going right to them.
They see it.
It's great.
I mean, people are like, oh, they're never going to see it.
Everything.
Somebody was talking shit to Julie the other day, and she's like, they think that we don't see it, and then when they answer, they're like, oh no, I didn't mean it. It's like,
yeah. I
do you
see
think there's
every
gonna be a
single
point-
DM.
Sorry. What you
No,
said?
I was just saying we see
see
every
everything.
single DM that comes through.
yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a point, do you believe, that it's going to become too much where you can't respond to everyone, and then you as an assistant or like a virtual
I
assistant?
mean, it is for you.
Yeah, I feel like I've definitely felt like I'm in that space, and I can't speak for you, but I just recently I've been feeling incredibly like overwhelmed just with creating the content, especially like me personally. I want to get into YouTube, and that just takes me so long to do, to create the videos, to edit the videos, to upload, to make the thumbnails and everything like that, and then go out and shoot content. And for me recently, I've just been feeling like really overwhelmed with doing emails and DMs and comments and creating content and following up. And you know, emails themselves can take me the entire day, because if I have 20 emails in the morning and I keep responding to each one, well, by the time I'm at email 5, email 1, 2, 3 have already responded.
But it like I mean, it takes a lot of time to like figure out how to go about everything and like how to answer what, when. So it's definitely a process, just like any other job.
Yeah.
Like just learning.
Figuring it out, what works for you, and maybe an assistant down the line, maybe hiring someone. I don't know those answers yet. That's something that.
Cool. So to give our viewers who, you know, it's a little bit of a different episode for them, just to talk with an entrepreneur who we're not talking about financial independence. We're not talking about real estate, but a lot of it kind of ties together in just these ladies get paid by brands. They'll get paid, you know, $5,000 by this brand, $10,000 by that, $12,000, $6,000, $2,000, $1,000, and they're independently contracted, right? You essentially work for yourself. I don't know if you have a business or not, but you work for yourself. You're independently contracted, and you have to continuously find most of the work's coming to you now, right? But that's what you have to do, right? You have to put yourself out there to continuously find new opportunity, right?
Either that or like some of it's like a 6-month or a 1-year contract,
Right.
which is like what you want. Because then you know that's coming.
At least
Yeah.
you
So-
have that.
Do you set yourselves up with LLCs or a business entity to create yourself rather than it's just like Julie Jacobson? Do you have something else built?
Yeah. I have an LLC.
You have an LLC.
Yeah.
Have you had it since the beginning?
I don't have one yet, but that's been something I like have been. Yeah,
Get on
I know,
it.
guys. I know.
Nice.
I know. It's one of those things. It's like, doing your taxes. It's like I just can't sit down and do it, but I'm gonna. So.
You're literally on your phone all day. You can do it.
Yeah, you can do it.
I know.
It's just
So it'll be easier to have. Like I definitely don't. I'm regretting not having it this whole past year. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
We have Brian, do you have other questions? I think I always like to tie it back into we ask all of our guests that come on, like what makes them most happy in this world. And I think that because I want to spend time doing that and Rye wants to spend time doing that, I think you almost answered it in a way. Like you're really happy. I love work. I want to work all day.
That's it.
But so, I think you kind of answered it, but.
So here's what we do. At the end of each episode, we do a segment called The Last Drop. And basically it's how we end the show. And essentially we typically ask for book recommendations or other podcast recommendations or resource recommendations. So I'll leave it in your hands, something that you leave our audience with that they can take with them to help them in their journey towards financial freedom or happiness. Like what would you both recommend?
Or advice for young entrepreneurs, like that could be part of it. Advice for somebody who the 21-year-old Jules and the 21-year-old Vivian. That can be part of it. We just want to
just put the cherry on top.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a book that I always go back to is You Are a Badass.
Ooh.
And I think it's just one of those like punch in the face, like wake up and just do it. And I think that would be my number one advice to anyone who, no matter what age, if you're in your 50s, if you're in your teens, just literally do it. Like whatever you have, take that first step, whether it's getting on your computer and literally typing in, how do I start? Or what is a domain? Or what, is an LLC? Or like, whatever it is that like can just start the steps to get to where you want to be and to have that dream and to have that vision and to really believe, like, this is so cliche, but to like literally believe that your dream will happen and like make it a vision.
I'm pretty much going to reiterate what you say, just because for me in the beginning, like the reason I started when I started was because I went to this party and I was telling this person that I really wanted to do a blog, but I'm going to wait till I graduate college. And the first thing he said to me, he was like, do not wait, start now. And like, I will never forget that. And I literally went home the next day and started. So I think just going for it, even if you don't know what you're going to do, how it's going to turn out. And then also understand that more times over again, you're going to be like, this fucking sucks, I'm quitting. And then you just don't quit.
It's so funny you say that because Joel, we actually haven't talked a lot about this, but I think and we don't consider ourselves successful people yet, right? Like we're not there, but I truly believe the only difference between successful people and not successful people is just not stopping. Like that's literally it. I think I will be successful in the future. Again, I don't consider myself that, but I think I will because I'm not going to stop. Like it just.
You will. That's the language that you have to tell yourself. You will.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we pretty much wrapped up episode 10.
10.
You're our 10th episode.
Double digits.
Yeah. Big time.
Well, thanks for having us on.
Congrats on. Wait till you see how many followers you get after this. This is gonna be.
We're
almost at 1,000. So, but seriously, I want to thank you guys for coming on. It's cool to have a different dynamic, and I'm proud of the two of you for doing what you do and following your passions, and to reach out to Viv and Jules. Obviously the best way is Instagram.
Hit us with your handles.
It's
okay. You can follow us, me at jules.jacobson
and myself at Vivian Audi.
Yeah, that's probably the best way. They're pretty public figures, and we
don't use the term influencer here.
Yeah,
not on our podcast.
Yeah.
Others might.
But we want to thank you for coming on. If our next show goes back into real estate a little bit, but I think it's really good to have young entrepreneurs on the show, and you guys are doing awesome. Follow us at Weekly Juice Pod.
Yep.
Yeah, Weekly Juice Pod. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thanks for coming on, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
We
That was fun.
should have you on ours at some point.